lot of teams have standout moments that define their franchise in multiple ways. Today we're going to be looking at the Cincinnati Bengals and check out the best moments from their franchise. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification to get alerts when we upload. Without further ado, let's jump to number 10. Number 10. Chad Johnson's guarantee. In Marvin Lewis's first season, Chad Johnson did not waste any time putting pressure on the rookie coach. After clinching a victory against the Houston Texans, Chad Johnson made his bold prediction that the under 500 Bengals would serve the Chiefs their first loss. Coming off of a franchise worst 2-14 2002 year and in an average 2003 season, most NFL fans thought Chad Johnson was going crazy. However, Kansas City did end up losing the game to the Cincinnati Bengals that day. After a slow first half which ended tied 3-3, Peter Warrick, the second receiver, returned a punt for 73 yards. The next Bengals drive, Warrick took a pass from John Kitna 77 yards to the house. This ultimately sealed the game as the Chiefs were 2 scores behind late in the fourth quarter. The win put the Bengals tied for first in the division and also put Marvin Lewis in the conversation for Coach of the Year. This showed that the Bengals were back to being a competitive force. Number 9. Corey Dillon's rushing record. After losing their quarterback Akili Smith to a neck injury, the Bengals interim coach Dick LeBeau put his faith in the running game. Running back Corey Dillon did not disappoint. The Bengals noticed how the Broncos seemed to be aggressive and overextending most plays, so the hard-running Dillon had a field day. In the fourth quarter, Dillon took a 65-yard run into the end zone, giving the Bengals a 24-14 lead. The Broncos could not let it end that easy though. Their offense made it 21-24 with enough time to stop the Bengals and keep the team winless. This was not what Destiny had in mind. With a minute and a half left on the clock, Corey Dillon sealed the game with a 41-yard touchdown run. When the screen flashed 278 yards, Corey Dillon learned he had broken a Legends record. While the rest of the season was nothing of importance and Dillon would eventually lose the record to Adrian Peterson, this moment had the whole city of Cincinnati standing and cheering. Number 8. The 2011 Draft. This is the draft where the Bengals picked some of the most important players in franchise history. A.J. Green and Andy Dalton were selected in this draft, and still to this day, the two remain as the cornerstones of the franchise. A.J. Green has been a highlight reel every season and is with Randy Moss as the only 2 wide receivers with 1,000 receiving yards in their first 5 seasons. Andy Dalton also had an amazing year in 2015 that ended with a poorly timed injury, but has proved himself a worthy starter in this league. Cincinnati will remember this draft class as the one that gave them some of the top players for the franchise. Number 7. Marvin Lewis. Coming in after a franchise worst 2-14 2002 season, Marvin Lewis changed the whole attitude of the Cincinnati Bengals. A defensive-minded coach being hired in Cincinnati broke most of the traditions of the team. Marvin has taken a Bengals team that was terrible in the 90s through early 2000s and given fans something to be excited about. The second longest tenured coach has taken the Bengals to 7 playoff appearances and is the winningest coach in franchise history. We're not going to argue with his playoff record, but Lewis has always loaded the team with talent and kept them competitive. Marvin Lewis has done a lot and changed a lot for the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 6. The 2005 season. Every Bengals fan remembers Carson Palmer being carted off the field and then the team just collapses. But let's not let that overshadow what this whole season meant for Cincinnati. The first time back into the playoffs since 1990. 14 seasons. The ending of the drought was led by a young, powerful offense, a Carson Palmer-led passing attack, and a great season of running from Rudy Johnson. This is the season the present-day Bengals actually proved that they could have a shot in the playoffs. An 11-5 record and being first in the division gave the city hope, something it had not had since the 80s. Going to the playoffs also allowed the city to experience the first ever playoff game in Paul Brown Stadium since it had been built in 2000. There was magic in Cincinnati in 2005 that was sadly cut short. Number 5. Anthony Munoz. Anthony Munoz played all 185 career games wearing the Tiger Stripes. Drafted out of USC with the 3rd overall pick in the 1980 NFL Draft, Munoz was the bedrock of the team's most successful decade and was recognized as the 12th best player of all time by NFL Network. He is in the discussion for the best left tackle of all time and was drafted by Forrest Gregg, another man in that discussion. With the absence of a Super Bowl title, Munoz's introduction to Canton in 1998 arguably remains one of the franchise's proudest moments. Number 4. Monday Night Football. There was a time when being on Monday Night Football was the ultimate sign of respect. It meant that if you were a team worth watching, one that could be entrusted to bring out viewers and put on a good game. For more than a decade, the Bengals were decidedly not that, and so ABC left them out on Monday night matchups for 12 years, the longest such drought at the time. The prolonged absence hurt the pride of Cincinnati fans, and so it was a big deal when the circus came back to town for a game against the Denver Broncos on October 25th, 2004. Despite being 1-4 coming into the game, the Bengals answered the bell in primetime. A record crowd at Paul Brown Stadium watched as Chad Johnson dominated Champ Bailey all night. Though Bailey was one of the decade's best defensive players, Johnson caught 7 passes for 149 yards against Bailey, including 2 catches of more than 50 yards. The end result, a 23-10 victory, a happy home crowd, and an official exit from the franchise's dark ages. Number 3. The kick return. The Super Bowl of 1989 is remembered for the last few minutes when the 49ers' offense took the field for the final time. However, what most forget is the Sanford Jennings kick return, probably the highest point in Bengals history because it was the first touchdown scored in the Super Bowl and set the Bengals ahead. After losing the heart of the defense, Tim Crumrich, the Bengals ended the third quarter with something that would have been the highlight of the game if not how the game ended. Former third-round pick waited for the blocks and went 93 yards for the touchdown, sending Cincy a breath of championship. It gave the Bengals a lead which they held onto until the famous Joe Montana drove the 49ers to a win with 34 seconds remaining in the game. Number 2. The Icky Shuffle. The Icky Shuffle was not a technically difficult dance, nor was it performed by an NFL rusher who experienced any kind of sustained success. It was, however, as big as anything else in America in the winter of 1989, as Woods, a fullback out of UNLV who played only 4 injury-shortened seasons, rushed for over 1,000 yards and 15 touchdowns for a 12-4 AFC Championship team. The Icky Shuffle wasn't much, just a couple of alternating side steps punctuated by switching the ball from hand to hand and maybe a celebration afterward. The dance's biggest day came on January 9th, 1989, as Woods scored 2 touchdowns and rushed for 102 yards in an easy AFC title game win over the Bills. 3 decades later, it remains a cultural touchpoint and is still regarded as one of the best moments in Bengals history. Number 1. The Freezer Bowl. One of the coldest moments in history. The second coldest game in NFL history gets the top spot on this list. The Bengals had finished 12-4 in the regular season and were the number 1 seed in the AFC. While the Chargers were seeded 3rd, they held probably the most explosive offense in the league with 3 future Hall of Famers: quarterback Doug Flutie, wide receiver Charlie Joyner, and tight end Kellen Winslow Sr. Even though the Bengals had beaten the Chargers 40-17 in the regular season, many expected this to be a tight playoff game with both quarterbacks slinging it all over the field. However, the game turned extremely lopsided. MVP quarterback Ken Anderson dismantled the San Diego Chargers defense, going 14 of 22 for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. The defense was able to get 2 interceptions and only allow 1 score as the Bengals win the coldest game they have ever played in, 27-7. The Chargers were able to run a little and throw 1 touchdown, but it was clear the cold was getting to them. No one was more excited about a berth to the Super Bowl than the fans in Riverfront Stadium that day. Let us know in the comments down below which Bengals moment is your personal favorite. Make sure you guys leave a like on the video if you guys enjoyed. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button for more sports content. As always, we'll see you guys next time.